Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Crossover Podcast. My name is David Shynock. Happy to have you guys back. It is Thursday whenever this episode releases, which means that a lot has happened since last time I recorded, including LCS, Roster Mania, free agency opened up on Tuesday night, Wolf Bombs dropped, there was a lot of community reaction, there was some mild moments, but I want to go over that. We had Cold War release over the weekend. There's a ton of issues there. We have some tweets regarding what should be player unions, but somehow they're still not a thing yet. And then I have one other topic to close out tonight that I'm excited to get to, but I'll save that for the end. First and foremost, the 2021 League of Legends season is finally upon us. It feels, I don't know, I guess in the COVID era, it just seems like things happen at a lot faster pace. It felt like just yesterday that Worlds ended, whereas normally it feels like the window to get to this point is long, but the gap between now and when the season actually begins is even longer. So I'm interested to see if this break feels as though it's as long to the start of the regular season, or if it's going to feel like, I don't know, maybe a little bit quicker. We'll see. Nevertheless, the new rosters got leaked, and I haven't really talked about it since the Worlds finale episode. And the most notable change to happen this offseason, and quite frankly, in my opinion, of any offseason in recent memory, is Perkz leaving G2 to come to Cloud9. Now, I honestly thought, it's not that I didn't think this would happen. I had a feeling after last season Perkz wanted to go back to mid, and the dynamic within the team when they swapped back after Spring Split was a clear signal that it was never going to last to a certain extent. I didn't think Perkz wanted to be ADC full time, and I guess that's turning out to be true for the most part. But he is coming to North America for a groundbreaking contract. I think it was like $5.3 million to Cloud9, which Cloud9 is now going to be Fudge, who is now a resident due to the changes in the rules with the OCE being basically disbanded, and now all OCE residents are considered North American residents. So you have Fudge in the top lane, you have Blabber in jungle, you have Perkz in ADC, you have Zven, and you have Vulcan in the bot lane. If it was spring of last year and you told everybody that you replaced Nisqy with Perkz, they would look at you and say, okay, this is a team that can actually contend for a world championship. Because at the time, we thought Cloud9 was unstoppable. There was nothing that felt like it was going to get in their way of going to Worlds and competing. Even MSI was supposed to be like the challenge or test for that roster. Unfortunately, COVID happened. They never got that test. But I guess my takeaway from this roster is this. Expectations are now astronomically high. And I think 90% of that falls on two people, but one more than the other. I think Blabber has by far the most amount of pressure on his shoulders. He has to perform in every meta. He cannot fall off. Otherwise, I hate to say it, but he's going to be gone, because they need somebody consistent that can perform at a high level. But the other is Fudge. And that one isn't as high pressure because it's like, okay, you're taking a chance on an academy player who has played well, but there's a possibility that it doesn't work out. Like, you haven't invested the time and resources as you have into Blabber, to where if that fails, then it just feels like this catastrophe coming in. And I hate to be all doom and gloom with the roster, but you do have to take into the context of last year. And you can't just write that off and forget that it never happened. There is a possibility of that occurring again this year. Is it likely going to happen? No, I think Perkz is a good in-game leader that helps transition that roster over time. Second, TSM is picking up Sword Art for their support, which is a phenomenal pickup, but they're picking up Huni in the top lane. which from what I've heard through Hotline League and other places covering it, it sounds like TSM did not want to spend the money to get Licorice because Licorice was a package deal with Diamond and I forget who Diamond and Palafox, I believe, to go wherever. So TSM didn't want to pay the money, so they needed a resident top laner who could still not necessarily play aggro, but was still decently good. And Huni's once again failing upwards. Good for the guy. Quite frankly, I hope he succeeds because everybody loves Huni, in my opinion. Not everybody, but the community perception is generally positive around him. So I'm hoping for the best. Do I think it's going to work out? I couldn't tell you. I honestly don't have a clue at the moment. It's like, this could either, I said on Twitter, this could either be beautiful or it could be an absolute train wreck. Either way, it's going to be fun to watch. The other roster that I do want to cover is 100 Thieves. Now, I'll disclose again, I'm biased towards 100 Thieves. They're currently my team in the LCS until NRG finally enters the league. And they now have picked up basically all of Golden Guardians and then kept Someday on the roster. And this point was brought up in Hotline League last night where people don't see it as developing talent. But I get, okay, so they bought out a good roster already, which is the win now philosophy, which realistically I think there is a chance. Oh, sorry, Coco wants up on my left. Coco, come on. There is a chance that they could easily make it to Worlds if everything clicks, without question. There is also a chance that the roster peaked last year and kind of falls off a little bit. But the important part to me is that even though people were considering this a win now roster, I think it's a transitional roster still. Because you have Tenacity, who is likely going to take over Someday's spot at some point, assuming he develops into the talent that he is. Maybe not next year, but the year after. And then you have Kenvi, who is fully expected to start at some point. So I don't know how long the contract terms are with Closer. I'd imagine if 100 Thieves is smart, you sign him to a 1-year deal. And then at the end of next year, you give yourself the flexibility to either A, put a pitch in for Closer to keep him around because Kenvi might need more time, or the likely scenario, in my opinion, is you want to start Kenvi and you shop Closer around to wherever. Even if Closer's the MVP of the league this year, I still think you give Kenvi the chance. He's a native NA jungler with a high skill ceiling. You cannot pass that opportunity up. You just can't. Like, they have a lot of talent coming up in the pipeline that if you're a 100 Thieves fan, you should really be excited about the next few years. You should be watching everything beyond just LCS because I feel like that's where I feel like that makes some of the World's runs 2 to 3 years from now even more special. But we'll see as it goes on. I don't want to go on much longer. There were some other roster moves that happened that nothing really stood out too much in my mind. I just think you're going to have a very heavily stacked top 4 teams in the league. You're going to have a middle of the road pack and then Immortals and Dignitas dragging it over the finish line to whatever the hell happens there. But we'll see. Who knows? Second topic that I wanted to get into today was the Cold War beta and some of the tweets coming out of the Call of Duty scene this weekend. So this must be said up front. This was by far and away the most smooth Call of Duty launch we have seen in a very, very long time. There were some server issues at midnight for about 15-20 minutes on PlayStation 4. PC people weren't having any issues with it. The game played decently well. You know, the lack of maps is still an issue in my opinion, but that doesn't take away from the launch night experience where you can grind for several hours and it's fun, and even into the next day where you're still pushing that leveling to, you know, mid-20s, early 30s for the hard grinders. For people like myself, the goal was to get to 20, which I think that I did. It was fun. I had a 6-man group from the NRG Discord that I went in with. I got to play with a friend from North Carolina for a little bit as well. Like, it overall was a very positive experience. But there's one thing that does stand out, and it can't be overlooked, and that's skill-based matchmaking. I know that a lot of other communities do not understand this problem. I addressed it on Twitter the other day, where somebody says, imagine if a League of Legends pro, an Overwatch pro, or Dota pro comes out and complains about skill-based matchmaking and not being able to do what Call of Duty high-end skill players can. It's such a dumb take because every other game has some sort of ranked playlist or some ability for you to go and actually play at a decently high level and then just relax in a casual queue. Not necessarily to the point where you can int, but to the point where you can use an off-meta weapon and you can do some of these other things that you wouldn't have been able to do normally. And I get the criticism because it sounds like people were being whiny, but the reality is when you lack the proper ranked playlist that it takes to fully flush out your multiplayer system, what happens is, and I use this 1 to 10 scale, okay? No matter where your skill range is on that 1 to 10 scale, in a skill-based matchmaking system or a ranked playlist, ideally, you'd want plus or 1 minus skill relative to where you're at, and you want that to be the priority. In a public match, you don't want it to be plus or minus 1, you want it to be plus or minus 2 with connection being the top priority because you want to focus on the gameplay experience being the best possible. Now, you don't want it to be so unbalanced to the point where you have somebody crapping the bed and somebody doing amazing, which that's still happening now, even through skill-based matchmaking, where somebody on the team is going, 50, 60 kills positive. Somebody's going 1 in 25, 1 in 26, and they're having to carry. And then other games, it's so close. It's 249 to 250, and everybody's even, and you're sweating your ass off. So it's like there's no balance like there was in Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, where you go in and you play a few games. 1 or 2 might be a blowout, but then somebody wants to try a little bit. They pick it up, and then all of a sudden you have a close game. But it's not that close game every single time to the point where you're in this game. You have to use an MP5. You have to use an M16. Oh, come on, Aqua. You have to use an MP5. You have to use an M16. Or some other gun that is incredibly meta to the point where you are going to be able to go barely positive with those guns. Like, that should not be happening at the consistent rate that it is now. I understand that this is an issue primarily for people at the top of the skill chain. This isn't an issue that really impacts me, even though I do notice the difference when I'm with a 6-man group versus when I'm playing solo. It's just, how do you not have a ranked playlist at launch? Like, it actually blows my mind at this point that we've had one of the best launches in a long time, and you still can't just add a preseason ranked playlist somewhere where people who just want to play hardpoint, control, and search and destroy, learn the rotations with people who actually want to learn them as well, can go in and play at that level. I don't get it. And to people saying, oh, every other game complains, or every other game would never have this issue. Yeah, because every other game, when they come into beta, there's only public lobbies. Use Valorant as an example. In beta, to my knowledge, I don't think there was ranked until the game launched. So when the game launches in November or October, there is zero excuse to not have ranked in the game if you are going to do a public beta every year. It's just unacceptable at this point. It really is. And I know David Vonderhaar tweeted out that there's people working behind the scenes and that we should be grateful for this. By all means, I'm not saying that these people suck at their job. I'm not saying that any of these people shouldn't get credit for designing a well-polished AAA title game. They should. But I am going to fault Activision here for not pushing this harder when you have a $25 million league and every other major game in existence right now that is competitive at a multiplayer level has a ranked playlist in it. The fact that you have to wait a month and a half and people like myself are going to get bored of public matches because you're not putting enough maps in, you're not doing enough to spice up the multiplayer normal experience, we're going to get bored. Like that, I don't see how that's so hard to comprehend. Just put in a preseason with provisional ranks. And then once the regular season starts, then go from there. I don't see how hard this is. I really don't. Like it's so frustrating. Like it really is. And this goes into, I'll transition this to the Twitter section of this, where Scump recently got fined for a bunch of tweets that he put out, one of which was calling out rank play, etc. I don't know if he got fined for that, but nevertheless, Vonderhaar came back at him for that. But Scump tweeted out how they were forced to sign contracts at the Minnesota event last year, basically right at the player meetings, etc., without accessibility to lawyers, without all these other things that you 100% should have. And it's like, I want to blame Activision at this point, but I can't, because we all know the developers have that power, and we know that they're likely going to use it in some capacity. This falls on the players for not listening to everybody in the community and many people around them telling them to unionize earlier. There should have been a player union prior to the league even starting. Call of Duty's been around for way too long not to have this by now. The LCS is struggling with it. Counter-Strike, I don't even know what the status of that game is, but Jesus, come on, people. In an industry where contracts are clearly an issue, and abuse of power when it comes to signing contracts and when it comes to information, I think it's information asymmetry, where there's not equal information on both sides. Why are we still at this point where it takes Scump tweeting and getting fined for that to get to the point where we can actually get lawyers in the room and actually have a formalized player union? I know it sucks. I know you think that they're going to take your opportunity away, and they might try. But the reality is they can't succeed if they kick everybody out of the league. Like, just please, for the love of God, protect yourselves at this point. Get an individual lawyer if you don't have one, or just something. It's like, when the fans notice it, you would think that the players would notice it as well. And I'm hoping that changes. But as I said, Call of Duty Cold War have one of the best launches that I've seen in a long time. And I wanted to use that to discuss what, in my opinion, was one of the greatest video game launch seasons, I guess. Like, fall of 2012 was one of the best video game launch seasons of all time, without question. In combination with that, I have my own personal excitement and things that I was able to accomplish in my own life during that stretch. So I want to walk through a phenomenal memory for me, which is September to the beginning of December in 2012. So that was my freshman year of college at Methodist University. I was a PGM student. I was golfing consistently, working at the range down there as well. First semester of classes, getting to know everybody. I had a good group of friends with the hall that I was on. But it started in September. So there's a golf side of this and a video game side. And I'll go through the golf first. When I went to Methodist, I had all the same clubs that I was using in high school up until the end of September, when I decided, okay, I want to replace the old ping putter that I'm using and get a Scotty Cameron. Our university was but we were affiliated with Titleist, so we got a lot of discounts on their clubs. A Scotty Cameron putter, lefty, was impossible to get used, so I had to get it new. So I went down to the putting green, and somebody actually came in from just testing out the Newport 2 Black Edition. And I asked Mr. Fritz, who was the instructor at the time, like, hey, can I go out and test this putter for a round and just see what happens? Because I'm interested in getting it, but I want to test it out. And he's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So guy handed me the putter from just coming off the 18th hole. I walked to the first hole, teed up. Don't remember how I played in the round outside of one thing and one thing only. I made every single putt for 7 holes straight. It was absolutely incredible. And I'm going to wait for the siren to go. And then I'll cut this footage out, I guess. Maybe. So I made every putt for 7 holes straight. And I instantly walk back into the pro shop and be like, hey, I'll take it. $175. I'll send it your way. I want the putter before we go on our fall trip. So a few weeks later comes around. Putter comes in. I'm getting used to it. It's pretty good. I've never really struggled with putting too much. But with this putter, it just felt absolutely incredible. So every fall, students get the chance to go down to some sort of trip to a bunch of different courses, which my freshman year was Kiawah Island. We got to play 3 courses down there. I think it was Cougar Point, Turtle Point, and then the ocean course at Kiawah Island. This was a week before I was scheduled to play my playing ability test. The playing ability test is a golf exam for PGM students where you have to shoot a certain score and pass the test, or basically make the cut, in order to become a PGA professional, in addition to all the classes and everything else you have to do there. So, starting at Kiawah, first round, I didn't play great, but I played decent, shot like 79, which at the time I was averaging like high 70s, like 78, 79, I'd say was pretty average for me. I played decently well, but I'm not going to say great. The next day, at the ocean course, luckily we caught it on a day with little wind, at least on the front 9. I played the best golf I've ever played in my life. We had a caddy with us, and he said to put the ball at a spot, and I put it there. Every time. I was 3 under on the front 9. Could have been 4 because I missed a 78-foot eagle putt by half an inch. It was like I couldn't miss. And the back 9 came. Things kind of fell apart a bit. I shot 6 over. The wind changes directions at the ocean course depending on the way that you're going out or in to the pro shop. I fell apart on the back 9, I'm not going to lie, but I still shot a career best 75. And I was happy. 3 over par. I couldn't complain after a 3 under front. And I was playing with the instructor from the school who didn't realize how good I was playing until after the 9th hole when he asked me. He's like, hey, you're playing pretty well. What are you at? And I was like 3 under. And he's like, holy crap. And I was like, yeah, it was incredible. The next day we played Turtle Point. I think it was, I didn't play that well. I think I shot like 86, 87. After news spread around the group that I played really, really well the day before, it felt really bad to crap the bed the next day. But the following weekend comes, and it's the playing ability test. I'd already tried it once back home before I went to college and missed it by a single stroke. I thought I had to par on the final hole. Made the par. Turns out I had to birdie. Screw me. So this time around, I was hoping for the best. And coming off of a good weekend at Kiawah, coming off a good putting weekend, everything felt great. So first round goes out. I have a fairly good front 9. So the way the round went was you play 36 holes, all walking. Typically you have somebody caddy for you. The front 9 I went out and I think I shot somewhere in the 30s. I don't remember the exact scores. But then the back 9 I kind of collapsed a little bit. And I still shot 70. It was either like 77 or 78. I was 1 or 2 strokes clear of the cut line. So I was like, okay, I put myself in a really good spot going into the second 18. The second day, we go out and I use up almost all of my strokes on the first 9 holes. And I was like, oh no, here we go. The 10th hole, I put a ball in the next fairway over, but somehow find a way to get up and down for par. The next hole is a long par 3. I short side myself, but somehow find a way to get up and down. It was like, okay, I'm somehow saving this round. The hole after that, I put it on the green 25 feet away and 3 putts. So I was like, okay, so I can do the hard shots, but I can't do the easy stuff. Okay, I see how this works. The next hole I par, it's not going bad. But then it's the 14th hole, I believe, which is a short little downhill par 3, only like 130, 140, something like that. And I put it to maybe 4 or 5 inches. And I birdied it, and it just you felt all the pressure kind of fall off of your shoulders, because it was like you're not competing against anybody else, you're only competing against yourself. And that little bit of confidence was exactly what I needed going forward. The next hole is like a downhill dogleg right par 5 with marsh all in front of the green, or par 4, sorry, with marsh all in front of the green. And I don't think I've ever parred that hole in my life prior to that round. And I hit a perfect hybrid on the green, 2-putted, and just played the round pretty consistent until 18, when I knew I was, I think, like 2 shots clear of the cut. All I had to do was just not screw up the hole. And the 18th hole down at Methodist is a short little uphill par 3. For me, I think it was a 6 iron, a 7 iron on a really good day. But it's nerve-wracking because everything slopes right and it's out of bounds right. Not by much, too. All it takes is one unlucky kick and you're gone. That hole can screw you over. I was so nervous on the tee that I think I bladed my 6 iron to the front of the green and was just relieved that it just went straight. I didn't care where, I didn't care how, nothing else mattered. So I chip up onto the green, I make the putt for par, past the PAT. So everything's great there. Golf is phenomenal. It's like, okay, I did everything that I needed to do at this school in terms of golf skill and capability right then and there, but it wasn't over. Why? Because we had massive video game launches coming later, or like a month after. So you had Assassin's Creed 3, you had Black Ops 2, you had Halo 4, and I think you had like 3 other games, including like Mass Effect 3. There was just so much coming out, and I was like, okay. After I passed my PAT, I was feeling really good. And I was like, okay, I want to give myself a lot of time to play games. I'm away from my parents. I don't have to worry about anything there. So let me just take care of all of my schoolwork for the semester by the time that these games come out. By October, I think it was like 27th, or it was towards the end of October that Assassin's Creed came out. I had 1 week to beat the game before Black Ops 2 came out. I had every single one of my projects, every single one of my final papers, everything was done. I literally could hibernate in my room until finals week and just play games. And that's exactly what I did. For better or worse, I beat Assassin's Creed in 4 days. And it was phenomenal. I mean, I hated the ending with Desmond dying, but that's another story for another day. But then Black Ops 2 came out, and my roommate had just moved out to move in with his frat house, and I had the room to myself, and there was a guy that was going to play video games with all of us. We all just played Black Ops 2 for an extended period of time. It was so much fun. I didn't even get into competitive Call of Duty at the time. I was just grinding pubs and a little bit of rank play. And it was just a blast. And it was like that launch season, that fall in general, for both golf and for video games, was one of the best times of my life, by far. Obviously, that doesn't take anything away from my wife. I love you. Our marriage is great. One of the happiest moments of my life. But in terms of video games and golf specifically, those 2 moments I'll always look back on with very, very fond memories. But I think I'm going to end it up there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate the love. Please subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment with your thoughts below. What are some of your great gaming moments and some of your greatest golf memories? Like, what were the great stretches that will always stick in your mind? Let me know. Anyways, hit me up on Twitter at @DShynock. Hit me up on TikTok. I'm posting some of the clips there as well. Anywhere that you can reach me, be sure to reach out. I'm more than happy to respond and have a conversation. Thank you all for tuning in, and you have a good one. Goodbye.